Hello, everybody. Welcome again to IndiCast. I am doing another feature alone this time. Although my brother will join me again another episode tomorrow, and this time we've been talking a lot about changes in the global order and how the global order is indeed fracturing, and that is going to give us a huge body of content for the next few weeks. So that will be a dominant theme for the next several discussions that we have on this platform, because it will be prudent first in the next few sessions to talk about Iran, then maybe to talk about the idea that American imperialism is making a comeback. We also want to dedicate some time to talking about the issues in Greenland. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the idea of how India could perhaps fit in the upcoming international order, and if the global order is indeed churning or fracturing, how India can play a role in that. So if you look at it like this, all the major dominant players in the international order today have had some major economic potential that they were able to capture, and that sort of gave them this position that they hold. I have an assertion to make via this platform is that we have an opportunity that is presenting itself, and it won't again, that through this fracturing international order, India can indeed become a major player in global politics. We already play an important part. It is a country that holds a massive population and a massive market, but the bargaining power has a lot more potential to increase. And for that reason, India has to make a lot of reforms to capture the economic potential that can perhaps establish us as a dominant global power in the next few decades. I will come back to the central point of this sort of video essay that I'm making is that the fractured global order is now moving towards some sort of multipolarity indeed, and this is presenting some major blatant evidences to us. First off, we know that there is a wedge now that has been drawn between the Americans and the EU, that started with a sort of hostile speech by JD Vance against the European leaders last year, and it has reached a new fever pitch with Trump's threats about taking over of Greenland. And Europe is now desperate to find a lot of partners around the world. That does present India an opportunity too. But this window will not be open forever. And this desperation to seek partnership from India is not from the Europeans alone. We know that even relations within the Arab world are fracturing. We used to sort of say Gulf monarchies, taking it for granted that almost all Gulf monarchies make similar decisions. But now Saudis and the UAE have had some tension recently. And yesterday, the president of the UAE was in Delhi meeting the Prime Minister of India. So, not only Europe, but other major players in the world are also sort of negotiating and trying to keep India in their camp. I think India has a lot of potential to do major economic reforms that can accelerate this process. Like I said, the central position of this theme is going to be that your position in the international order is fully dependent on your ability to capture economic potential. Whether or not you are able to do it, that depends on you. Now, India is already a major market and it will always be relevant purely based on population size, but we have to live with some of our shortcomings that need to be overcome. Despite everything, India is still a country that is very, very low on manufacturing, and manufacturing is indeed to this day an important facet of sustainable economic growth. We are a country that is still very, very risk averse, especially when it comes to agricultural reforms. Agricultural reforms are so desperately needed, especially in the northern states of India. The sale and the export of agricultural goods was also a central point on which the American trade negotiations with India reached a sort of a tense area. And that also has to do with some of our own inabilities to reform our agricultural markets. Now, India has a lot of potential, and like we keep saying that we are one of the major economies of the world, which we are, but that should not be reason enough to avert our potential to do bold economic reforms. Our bold economic reforms need to start with major slashing of regulatory burdens. We need to we need to reduce the regulatory and compliance costs of businesses in India by maybe like 70 or 80%. Company registrations, company filings, things like land acquisition in India are still so archaic and so tedious that it can, make people hang their boots in frustration and anger, because the metrics that determine ease of doing business in a country in India to this day are fairly weak. The moment we start slashing them, we will start seeing returns on that front immediately. You know, I think that this is a critical juncture, because the way countries are seeking other partners at the moment is not going to stay like this forever. Because as much as we like to say that we are a fast growing economy with a lot of potential, so are a lot of Southeast Asian countries. So is Mexico. So are parts of Eastern Europe. There are many areas that present a alternative to India as well in the world, and we need to be realistic about our competition as well. We know that we tried to get the benefit of China plus one policy, but countries like Vietnam were much more successful in doing that. So, if the international order is fracturing a little bit, and the churn in the world order, no matter how tense it is presenting us with another opportunity to do some major bold economic reforms to slash the regulatory burden, to allow investors to move in with ease, to cut red tape a little bit, we may actually be standing on another opportunity to do some major economic reforms that can establish India as a major player in this incoming new world order. Now, I'm not saying that India will be the number one unipolar power, but the potential to be a major player in international order is immense, and we must capture our economic potential to do so. That is sort of my overall theme of this episode. I do want to talk a little bit about critical minerals and strategy related to uh, the development of our potential to capture those critical minerals and the supply chain in India as well. I want to talk about the issue of American imperialism in Greenland. I also want to talk about the protests in Iran and how they seem to be slowing down, and the regime seems to have a strong hold over its people at the moment. That I will do in maybe tomorrow or day after's feature with my brother. Till then, thank you for joining us on this very short sort of video essay. And like, share, and subscribe, and give us feedback on what you think we can do to improve our platform. Thank you.